Yashodandana Brajadana Andana Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Gandharva Girivardhari Yashodandana Brajajana Andana Jamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare John Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtokta Shakti Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. John Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtokta Shakti Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nantikoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jani Tagore Premanandi.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, if possible, can you increase the voice or come closer to the mic, whatever is convenient for you?
Is that better?
Yes, much better now. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. Chapter entitled Jit Age Parivrajikacharya. Okay, and Prabhupada loved these deities. They had presided over the Bombay Pandal, and when they hadn't been on stage, he had kept them in his room where he could look at them during the day. He had brought them from Bombay to Malaysia to Sydney, and now he proposed to install them in this fledgling ISKCON center. But the infinite purity of his heart and the depth of his determination to risk anything for their lordships, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, are unfathomable. Srila Prabhupada's activities are most grave, and their deeper meaning eludes an observer. Of Lord Chaitanya, Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote, quote, I do not know the deep meaning of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. I am just trying to describe them externally. End quote. When Prabhupada came to the temple to perform the initiation ceremony and deity installation, the devotees weren't ready. Only one small vase of flowers decorated the almost bare altar, and the devotees had not made garlands for the deities. Prabhupada was displeased. The small temple was packed, however, and guests and devotees crowded the open doorway and peered through the front window. TV crews filmed the action under hot lamps. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 14, text number 17. It's prose, so I'll just read it. Kadachin mano rato pagata pitri pitamahad yasat sad iti swapna nivriti lakshanam anubhavati. Word for word, kadachit, sometimes. Manorata upagata, obtained by mental concoction. Pitri, the father. Pita maha adi, or grandfather and others. Asat, although long dead, and although no one knows that the soul has gone. Sat, again the father or grandfather has come. Iti, thus, thinking. Swapna nivriti lakshanam, the kind of happiness found in dreams. Anubhavati, the conditioned soul feels. Translation. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has come again in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream. And the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Purport. Due to ignorance, the real existence of the Lord, the conditioned soul imagines many things. Influenced by fruitive activity, he comes together with his relatives, fathers, sons, and grandfathers, exactly as straws gather together in a moving stream. In a moment, the straws are thrown everywhere, and they lose contact. In conditional life, the living entity is temporarily with many other conditioned souls. They gather together as family members, and the material affection is so strong that even after a father or grandfather passes away, one takes pleasure in thinking that they return to the family in different forms. Sometimes this may happen, but in any case, the conditioned soul likes to take pleasure in such concocted thoughts. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur-militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream, and the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. That's what grabbed my attention when I read this, the end of that sentence there, mental concoctions and taking pleasure in them. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, text 55, where Krishna is explaining to Arjuna the symptoms of someone whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence, the very first thing Krishna says in reply to Arjuna's question is that someone who's in transcendental consciousness, they give up mental concoctions. So Krishna says, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoctions. Because that's what sense gratification is. It's the contact of a sense object with the sense, and then the mind says that means pleasure. But it's just two things contacting each other, and that's it. But our mind, this wonderful machinery called the mind, it decides that that equals happiness. But there isn't actually anything there, but that's how the material energy works. Now, of course, in the spiritual realm, there is actually substance, there is actually pleasure there when there is contact between two spiritual objects. But in the material world, it's not reality. It's just an imagination because we aren't these bodies. We've got nothing to do with these bodies. So when another body contacts another body, what's the soul got to do with it? Nothing. But the mind and the false ego work together to convince us that, yes, this is happiness. So Krishna says that actually when he finds satisfaction in the self, he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So we need to find happiness in the right place. That's the goal. And this is mentioned several times in the Bhagavad Gita, this idea of mental concoction and happiness. In the 6th chapter, text 24, Krishna says, one should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation. Because all these material desires that we have, again, they've got nothing to do with us. The spirit soul is completely separate from the material energy, but the false ego convinces us that, no, actually we do have something to do with it, and material things and their combination equals happiness. But it's just a fantasy. The mind is a fantasy factory. It's embarrassing, but we're actually carrying around a self-inflicted propaganda machine. In our own head, there's this little thing going, or head, heart, however you want to think of it, conceptualize it, whether it's the brain or the chitta, the consciousness seated in the heart area. We have this mind, and it preaches to us 24/7 that there's happiness in this material world. So there's no substance to that. There's no reality to that idea. But we're constantly convinced at every moment. And Lord Chaitanya, he confirms this in the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, in the material world, conceptions of good and bad are all mental speculations. Therefore, saying this is good, this is bad is all a mistake. So, for example, the classic example is given, there's some cold water. In summer, that cool water, when we touch it, it's very pleasing. And in winter, it's very detestable. We hate it. So depending on the state of the mind, it's one moment acceptable, another moment detestable. So that means that it doesn't have actual reality because the relative experience of it is changing. It doesn't have a permanent pleasure-giving nature, that cool water, because that cool water, if it was always pleasing, then whenever we touch it, we'd be happy. But one minute it's making us happy, the next minute it's making us unhappy. So which is it? So this is the material world. The very thing that gives you happiness, the next moment is giving you distress. So trying to find happiness here isn't the best idea, but the material mind convinces us that we know better than God. There is pleasure here. We all know there is. That's why we all came here, right? Because there's happiness here. And because we're happy here, why do we need this Bhagavatam class to tell me that there isn't happiness here? Why don't we just end this class right now, you know? Because we all know that there's happiness here. Well, that's why we came here. I'm me. I know myself. I know what gives me happiness. I know as soon as this Bhagavatam class ends, I'm going to go over to the fridge and get something to eat, and that will make me happy. And then I'll go listen to some music, which will make me happy, and this and that. So many things. I know how to make myself happy. Because Ishvaroham Aham Bhogi, I am the controller and I am the enjoyer. I know what's what. And Krishna points this out. This is how we're thinking. As Srila Prabhupada points out in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that there is two psychic divisions of the mind, the desire to control and the desire to enjoy. So this is the very fundamental nature of the conditioned soul in the material world. So Krishna says someone who has such a mentality is deluded by ignorance. This is the demoniac nature. So the spirit soul isn't the demon, but the contaminated mind is giving us a demoniac mentality. And unfortunately, that's what we're carrying around in this material world. So we need to purify it. So we know who the enemy is. It's not him, her, them. Any external agent is not the enemy. It's our own mind that we're carrying around with us 24/7. So once we've identified the enemy, as Krishna explains in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, our own best friend or our own worst enemy, our own mind, our own propaganda machine inside our own head or inside our own heart, our own consciousness, uh, it's giving us all the misinformation. And so it wants to take pleasure in mental concoctions. So the desire of the mind to find pleasure is not wrong. As it said, anando maya biasat, the soul is pleasure seeking by nature. That's fine. But the thing is just you need to find the pleasure in the right place. That's the real secret. We need to find pleasure in hearing Krishna Katha, in hearing a sweet kirtan, or in taking shelter of chanting Krishna's holy names. So that's the correct orientation of the mind, to find pleasure in relationship to Krishna. So the pleasure that we're currently experiencing, as it's mentioned in the text in the purport, is like happiness in a dream. It seems to be there, but it's just imaginary. Just like when you're in a dream and you're having some pleasurable experience, then you wake up and you realize, oh, that was just a dream. So it was just in the mind. And that's exactly what we're experiencing right now, as I've heard Dave and Rita Swami put it nicely. And I'm pretty sure he's just quoting the texts and purports from the Bhagavatam when he says this, as you can imagine, is that we have the daydream and we have the night dream. So right now, we're all experiencing the daydream. We're not these bodies. I say that with conviction, but not really. I'm fully convinced I am this body, but intellectually I know that I'm not. So, but we're trying to purify the mind to convince it that we're not, and to realize that actually, hang on, within my own heart, I'm hanging out with Krishna. But I'm so absorbed in this external atmosphere that I don't realize that. We're too absorbed in the illusion. So many mental concoctions come up in this illusion. Oh, this son of mine is my long lost grandfather. Now, that's probably not such a common thought in the West, but maybe in more cultured civilizations where they have the idea of reincarnation and karma, that may be a more common thought. Uh, but what is reality? The mind is so noisy. Oh, at least mine is anyway. I can't speak for all of you here, but I know mine makes a lot of noise. So, what is life like free from the mind and its noise? What is reality? How do we get away from this propaganda machine? So, the immediate thing that came to mind is, I mean, I've had this experience many times, I'm sure many of you have too, is we do get peace from the mind. For example, tomorrow, don't chant 16 rounds, chant 32, and then see how your day is different. I've definitely had that experience where, yeah, I've chanted extra rounds that day, chanted double or something. And then practically the whole day, there's just like this tranquil peace up here. You know, there's not all this like blah, 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 and like this desire, that desire, you need to do this. Oh, what about that? Blah, blah, blah. It's just peace and quiet. And then when there's that peace and quiet, you can actually see reality. There's not all this like mess and noise around everything. You can just see things for as it is. But to do that, to chant 32 rounds every day may not be so easy for all of us. We may not have that time. So that's one way of doing it, getting free from the mind's noise, is just getting absorbed in Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, chanting extra rounds like that, giving it a good dose to purify it, Chaitadarpana Marjanam, so we can get some peace and see what reality is. Or another way we can realize that we've got this mind that we're carrying around is you can do what is known as an observation journal. So just sit down, get out a piece of paper, and whatever thoughts come into your mind for the next 10 minutes, you just immediately write down. Why am I doing this? This is stupid. I don't think this observation journal is a dumb idea. Write it down. That's your mind. I'm hungry. I need to get something to eat. Write it down. That's your mind. My butt's sore. Write it down. That's your mind. I forgot to put the rubbish out. I need to check my WhatsApp. Write it down. That's your mind. Everything that's coming up for 10 minutes, just write it down. Don't act on it. Don't go anywhere. Just stay in that seat with the pen and the paper and just write down every single thing that comes down. Oh, I've got nothing to write down. Write that down. Whatever's popping up in the mind. Just see your mind for what it is. Just 10 minutes. So that's a lot quicker than chanting an extra 16 rounds. But it just sometimes doing exercises like this help us realize, oh, yes, I have a mind. Because it's so easy to get absorbed in it. And even though we may chant our 16 rounds, still through the whole day, we may think that we are the mind and act on everything that it tells us to do. So 16 rounds, there's nothing wrong with that. If we can chant them attentively, then we can get free from the mind. But often we don't chant them as attentively as we should, and our mind still runs most of our day. So sometimes an exercise like this, an observation journal, can help us realize, oh, yeah, that's right. I have this mind, and he's that guy over there. And everything that he tells me, I don't have to do. I can just see that all these thoughts that pop up, they're probably not inspired by the super soul. If they were, then I'd probably be following the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada like anything. So possibly they're just a lot of my own material desires, at least speaking for myself. So yes, more Krishna kathas, the best, but if we don't have enough time to do that, then you can just do a simple experiment like that just to remember, oh yes, I've got a mind and he's a propaganda machine with all these desires that actually I don't have to act on. So it's all imagination. So many things, so many fears, anxieties that come up are just that. They're fears and anxieties that don't actually have any substance in reality. Sometimes they may do, but most of the time, the mind's just so noisy and ridiculous that it just distracts us in so many ways. So, of course, for devotees, we suffer from this a lot less because we're chanting Hare Krishna, because we know the philosophy. Generally, we can experience more freedom from the mind. But to the degree that we know the Lord, to that degree, we are free from the dictations of the mind. And to the degree that we are not Krishna conscious, then to that degree, we're suffering from the dictations of the mind. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how, due to fruitive activity, we come together with others and become family. Fruitive activity is the gears of this material world. They're what make the world go around, doing stuff. So Arjuna asked Krishna in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what is a fruitive activity? Like, can you define it? What is karma? And so Krishna explains to Arjuna in the 8th chapter, he says a very interesting sentence. He says, action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activity. So basically anything that we do that's generating a karmic reaction to give us another material body in the future, that's what's called karma. So because of karma, fruit of activity, we got this body, and our family members got bodies, and we all got put together due to fruit of activity. And Hiranyakashipu, he explains this in a very nice way to the lamenting relatives of his brother Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha has been killed by Lord Varaha, and so all his relatives are crying. Hiranyaksha's children, his wife, his mom, they're all crying. And so Hiranyakashipu explains that they shouldn't lament for their dead relative. And he explains very accurate knowledge, even though he's a demon. He does actually explain the correct Siddhanta. He says, in a restaurant or place for drinking cold water, many travelers are brought together. And after drinking water, they continue to their respective destinations. Just like today, you know, we've got petrol stations. We pull up to the petrol station, we put petrol in the car, and then we drive on. So Hiranyakashipu is saying, similarly, living entities join together as a family, and later, as a result of their own actions, they are led apart to their destinations. So we actually have nothing to do with our family members in the grand scheme of things. Of course, in this current body and its temporary existence, we do have something to do with our family members, and we have to do our duty, perform our responsibilities nicely, yes. But in the grand scheme of things, we actually have nothing to do with each other. We have some karmic entanglement, which is why we're together now, but the very next moment that karmic entanglement finishes and we're separated. Who knows where we're going to go in our next life? For most people, of course, for devotees, their future is not so unknown, it's more certain. If one's begun the process of devotional service, then they will either take a better birth in the material world, or they'll finish up their business entirely and go back to Godhead. So devotees won't get thrown everywhere, but the general mass of people will, unfortunately. And the thing is that life is so fragile that death is sure. We all know this. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I've come here to destroy all people. That's time. Everyone will be destroyed. That's what Krishna says. Yet amazingly, even though we know this, we forget about it. We live our lives as if we won't die. Of course, if we're terrified that we're going to die at every moment, it would be very difficult to live a sane life. So we have to forget it to some extent. But we can't completely forget it, because if we completely forget it, then why not just enjoy it and forget about any consequences? And that's the philosophy that a lot of people live by. YOLO, you only live once. But as Yudhishthira Maharaj said to Yamaraj, it's amazing that hundreds of millions of people are dying every day, going to the kingdom of death for sure, but those that remain think that they will live forever. What could be more amazing than this? So we can never forget death. It's a reality. And even some, I wouldn't call him a straight out materialist, Steve Jobs. I mean, he's definitely a materialist to some extent, the founder of Apple, but he did have some spiritual inclinations. So he's not a complete materialist, but he said that death is life's greatest change agent. It helps me remember that should I be doing what I'm doing? So as devotees, we can apply the same logic. If death is coming up, would I be living in this way? Or maybe I should get more serious about my spiritual life. Not that we freak out, but that we understand that there is time is ticking. There is only a certain amount of time we have in this life. And as Prabhupada strongly encourages us, we shouldn't take another birth. I mean, we can go on a more gradual path back to Godhead, but why delay? Why subject yourself to more suffering? Better to speed it up. But the thing is, we get bewildered. Why do we get so bewildered? And Prabhupada says in the purport, because family affection is so strong. So whether one's a complete materialist or one's a practicing devotee, still such things can bewilder us. Family affection, it's the hard knot in the heart. So I want to finish with this. I had a lot more to say on this. It's a big topic, family affection, but the general principle I want to share, which we all know, is that there's nothing wrong with being attached to our family members as long as we're attached to them for this fact that they're devotees of Krishna. But if we're attached to our family members simply on the basis of the body and our bodily relationship, that's a problem. And that's exactly what Queen Kunti prays to be freed from. He prays to Krishna that please sever my bond of affection to my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. She doesn't want to be attached to them on the basis of the body. But of course, being attached to the Vrishnis and the Pandavas because they're, Mahabhagavats, the greatest devotees ever, that's the greatest attachment to have. That's liberating to be attached to such people. So similarly, in our own family, we may have many devotees in our family. So to be attached to them because they're devotees, that's wonderful. But if we're simply attached to them on the basis of the body, that's where the problem is. And of course, just because someone may not be a devotee in our family doesn't mean that we don't show them affection or love or care or appreciation. No, I'm not saying that. But we just have to be careful of that subtle differentiation of not being attached to people based on the body. Because again, we are not the body. We are spirit soul. So if we're attached to our family members on the basis of the spirit soul, on the basis of the fact that they're parts and parcels of Krishna, devotees, then that's wonderful. That's okay. That can be liberated. If we're seeing, and not only that, we can extend that, of course, to others that aren't even our family members. If we see others also as parts and parcels of Krishna, for example, everyone here in this Zoom call, everyone, no doubt, is a practicing devotee to some extent, some much greater than me, of course, and practically on their way back home to Godhead in this life, whereas myself, I'm trying to catch up to you. But we're actually all related because we're all parts and parcels of Krishna. God's the Supreme Father. Krishna's the Supreme Father. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita in the 14th chapter. So we're all related. So just because there's a bodily connection actually has nothing to do with real relationship. It's just part of the illusion. So friendship, kinsmanship, like that, all these bodily connections, they are just temporary, but our real connection, our real relationship is on the platform of the soul. So applying that to our own family members, and even those who are our family members that aren't practicing devotees, if we can understand and always appreciate that they're a part of Krishna, then we can still be benefited and not degraded by a bodily conception and relationship in that way. If they don't want to practice Krishna consciousness, that's fine. Just feed them lots of prasad, and they'll eventually come around. And that way we can see them as part of Krishna. I'm feeding Krishna's devotee. They don't know they're a devotee yet, but I'm going to feed them until they realize they know. And just by your good character and behavior and friendship and relationship with them, then eventually they'll think more favorably of Krishna's devotees and decide to take to the process themselves, to become a devotee themselves, if not this life, their next life. So that's how to overcome the bond of family affection that can bewilder us, is to see everyone as a devotee of Krishna. That's the real solution. And we may think that we can't see like that. That's okay. Act like it. We don't see like it, act like it. If you act like it, eventually your vision will change. So we treat people like Krishna's devotees. We feed them prasadam. We say please and thank you. We treat them with respect. We try to encourage them to take the spiritual life, even if it's not Krishna consciousness, even if it's their own spiritual practice of another path, that's okay. Anything on the spiritual path is a great step forward. And if we encourage people then on their own spiritual path, then that will eventually bring them to Krishna. So that's how to treat people as spirit soul and get free from the bond of family affection, which can bewilder us. So I'll finish there. There's a few minutes left. maybe 4 minutes for any quick comments or questions. Anyone would like to share anything? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for a beautiful lesson. It's very relevant to our everyday life. I have a quick question. What do you personally do to hold yourself from forcing Krishna conscience to your relatives? Because being attached emotionally and mentally, we try to, like cause good to our family members. So we have someone who is not Vaishnavi, who can definitely, you can tell that they are not really, following. You feel quite relaxed and you feed prasad and you take it easy. But when you see some of your family members tending to develop Krishna consciousness, you're trying to, help. And sometimes it doesn't work well. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's very painful because, naturally, that's the bewildering feature of this material energy. We get bewildered by family affection. We can speak about it so much, but the reality is it's there. We can theorize about it so much, but still, the heart is what it is, and it will emote the way that it will emote. So one thing that's very painful for me is my father, because it's very difficult to speak to your parents, of course, because they know better than you. They're your parents. So as I've heard it explained, you don't speak to your parents. Better that you get someone who's the same age they are to speak to them. Don't try doing it yourself because you're their kid. You just generally they won't listen to you. Sometimes they will. It is possible. Especially very pious families can do like that. So many Indian families, for example, the child becomes Krishna conscious and then the whole family ends up becoming Krishna conscious. They're just more pious. But my family, not so much. My mum, at least, she's religious to some extent, but my dad's agnostic. But the thing that's real painful for me is my dad, he's guaranteed to die. I mean, everyone is, but my dad's like Parikshit Maharaj. He's got his notice. He's been given basically less than a year to live. And before that, he had a near-death experience. And, I was there to support and everything, but it's so painful because you just want to give them Krishna. It's like, Dad, chant Hare Krishna. Well, they're just, we can't force anything on them. That's actually the worst thing, to force spiritual life on anyone, because that completely goes against free will. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, I've explained to you this knowledge completely, deliberate on it fully, and then do what you wish to do. That's why we're here in this material world, because Krishna gave us free will. We chose to come here. So if we want to mess around here, then okay. So as Krishna's representative, we also can't force people. But yes, with family, it's especially painful because, there's so much affection and connection and relationship there that when they're not becoming Krishna conscious, it's really painful. So yeah, we do the best that we can. And yeah, prasadam definitely helps. And I'm pretty confident my dad's off to a better next birth. I mean, maybe he won't go back to Godhead, that's for sure. He's not a practicing devotee, but he's read Bhagavad Gita to some extent, and he also distributed it when he couldn't understand it fully. So he's both engaged in hearing and chanting, distributing Krishna consciousness and engaging in it himself. So as we understand from our philosophy, it's said that someone who does such gets a human birth in the next life. So maybe that much he's done in this life. But the thing is that's the thing. That very feeling that we have and that desire for our family members, we can have that for everyone. Because everyone is our family member. Everyone's part and parcel of Krishna. And that's exactly what sannyas is. Once someone takes sannyas, they realize that actually, they're not my family. The whole world's my family. Everyone's my family. So it's not that when someone takes sannyas, they're renouncing their family. They're actually taking on the whole world as their family. That's the idea. Because we're not these bodies. But yes, while we have this conditioned affection for certain material bodies that are in relation to ours, yes, dovetail it and try to give them as much Krishna as you can, as they'll take, because you've got that natural affection there for them. Dovetail that. At the same time, expand that. You dovetail that affection as well to giving it to others who are more receptive, and shower them with affection for those that will take more Krishna, that are willing, even though they may not be materially related to you in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, we have to respect people's free will. What can we do? You know, Krishna says that himself. He doesn't force himself. So who are we? We just try our best. We pray. That's another thing you can do, of course. Pray, 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 pray. Maybe that's what I'm not doing enough for my own father. I mean, I do different things. And I've encouraged all my family to different degrees in Krishna consciousness, but I could definitely do a lot more. And also I could pray a lot more. And that's something I could definitely do. You know, not thinking about myself and my desires and my needs, but the others and their progress in Krishna consciousness. Just pray daily. You could just pray daily if you have deities at home, or if you don't, you could get a picture of Gaura Nitai and just pray like anything to them, that, you know, your family member, whoever it may be, may take another step towards Krishna. And the other thing about prayer is that you may make a sincere prayer and it may be very powerful, but you may not see the results immediately, but it will come to pass in due course of time. So that's the thing when you're dealing with Krishna. When you deal with a devotee, you know, you get an answer straight away. But when you pray to Krishna, you don't know how or when he's going to answer it. But he will. He will. So you can pray like anything for your family members, and you may not see any immediate change, but maybe a year down the track, you know, they'll be in a crisis, and then they'll have a change of heart and they'll become more open to spiritual life, perhaps. And that could have been catalyzed by your sincere prayer. We don't know. So I guess the main thing is patience. If we're a good devotee and we have good character, that's the main thing that's going to impress people, our own character. If we're loving, caring, affectionate, and of course, you know, not forcing anything spiritual or Krishna conscious on them, but always giving that option there, being open for it, but just mainly being really a perfect gentleman or a perfect gentle lady, that will be what conquers their hearts ultimately, and they'll become more receptive. So my dad, he may have a change of heart just before he dies. I'm holding out for him, so see what happens. But because he's already almost died once, and he's guaranteed to die within the next year, basically. He's got his time bomb ticking on him. So just hoping before that time comes, you know, he decides to change. But if he doesn't, I already know that he's done enough to get a human form in his next life. So that much is there. So, yeah, sorry if I've rambled a bit and gone around in circles, but yeah, hopefully that helps. Anything you'd like to respond to?
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and I remember that Srila Prabhupada said that if you practice in Krishna consciousness, your parents at the last moment of their life, they could see Krishna. So I'm sure that your father will get this benefit from your service. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. That's yeah, that's a very good point you just mentioned. That's the crucial factor. They may do nothing, but just because of our own practice, yes, they will get immense benefit. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this morning. I hope you have a wonderful day. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Anita Gaur Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol. Panchkalpa.
कृपया सिंधु भये बच पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय His Grace गौरांग गदाई प्रभु की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल हरि बोल।